So great to be here with you all in Abu Dhabi. Uh, Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. Since 2016, myself and my team have taken Cigar from 400 million to 15 billion of assets. That is largely due to the power of networks. And today I want to talk to you about that. Our tagline as a firm is capital, culture, and network. And that is really important. Let me start by asking you all a question. Who here in the last kind of 3 hours has gone up to a random person and introduced yourself? Raise your hands. So very few of you, and that's a big mistake because you've literally paid to be here. And the people in this area have all paid to be here, and they're paying to be here in order to meet each other. So you have a huge opportunity after this to go up, introduce yourselves to random people, and that will be to your own benefit. Why is my presentation called Never Eat Alone? I'm hoping to leave you with a few takeaways here that will change your ability to network. First of all, there is a book. It's called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. If you have not bought it, I recommend you buy it. It is a fantastic book. It is my Bible of networking. And so that is insight number one for you. Insight number two is what we spoke to earlier. About a second ago, which is the biggest impediment to networking is ultimately fear. It's the fear of being rejected. It's the fear of embarrassment. And ultimately, what I would tell you is it takes practice to network. It takes practice to overcome that fear. And so go up, say hi to random people, introduce yourself. There is no shame. Actually, some lady over there in red introduced herself to me earlier. And I thought that was great because I now have her business card. And if I'm looking to recruit someone in this country, I'm going to talk to her. And so unbelievable. It's really important to have that courage. And so ultimately, I'm hoping to leave you with a few takeaways. Firstly, though, is why is networking important? Networking is important because you're going to learn through networks. Every person you meet most likely knows something or knows more about something than you do. And so networking is an incredible opportunity to learn. It's also a great source of friendships. The amount of people I have randomly met on LinkedIn that have become friends is kind of remarkable. And so it's an incredible source of friendships. And ultimately, the worst thing in life is to be stuck with the same people your entire life. Allowing new people to enter your life is deeply enriching. And then it's fun. Ultimately, networks expand your horizons. You end up doing new things. I met some person randomly who asked me to walk to the North Pole with him, and I ended up doing it. And you know what? It was incredible. It was a very enriching experience. And ultimately, networking drives success, right? Ultimately, what is success but a combination of the people you meet and what you end up doing with them? And so many, many, many reasons on why networking is important. But there's a time in life for networking. And this is really, really important. Early on in your career, it's really about what you know to do. And later on in your career, it's about who you know. And so timing this is actually really important. So now let's get down to the basics, right? There are really four things I want to leave you with in terms of how to build successful networks. The first is to be deliberate and have a plan. I like to say be deliberate and hustle. The second is to be curious and generous. The third is to get ready to get lucky. And finally, probably the most important one is follow up. And so I'm going to go through each one of these in a bit of detail. But if there's one thing you could take away, it's probably this slide. In terms of being deliberate and having a plan, too many people, and I'm ready to bet most of you do this, is you set up your meetings based on the order of emails in your inbox. Someone sends you an email and basically you respond and you say, oh, it'd be great to connect. And then all of a sudden you or your assistant set up a meeting, and it has nothing to do with what your objectives are and everything to do with the order of your inbox. That is a huge mistake. And so what I do and what my process is at the beginning of every year, I think about what are my objectives? What are the few things I really need to accomplish this year to be successful? And those I do in the form of OKRs. And so I write those objectives. I then think of who do I know that is going to help me meet those objectives. And those will be the people that I prioritize meetings with. Then I think about who do I not know that I think could help me meet my objectives, and I figure out a strategy to get to those people. And then finally, there are people that are just super connectors and that are incredible energy givers that you are not certain they are going to be able to help you meet your objectives. But ultimately, you know that if you share your objectives with them, they may be able to help, and they're actually quite likely to be able to help. And I think one of the really important things in networking is when you're going out and you're meeting people, sharing your objectives, sharing your challenges is one of the most important things you could do. Because ultimately, you do not know necessarily who is ultimately going to be able to help. So being deliberate is really, really, really important. Now, being deliberate doesn't get you anywhere unless you hustle. And so this is a fun message I get. I'm ready to bet not many of you have gotten this message. I get kicked off of LinkedIn on a regular basis for the sheer amount of cold outreaches I do. And this is the note you get from LinkedIn when they view you as having reached out to too many people. And so ultimately, cold outreach, it takes a lot of no's to get to a yes. When you have objectives, one of the things I've learned is you have to get desensitized to no's. Most people that you meet in your life are going to say no to you, but it takes 99 no's to get to a yes. And so ultimately, hustling is incredibly valuable. And today, in the world of social media, the tools we have that allow us to hustle are incredible. And LinkedIn being one of the most important ones. And so if any of you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I actually respond to 100% of my LinkedIn messages. It's something that we do, and it's proved to be very helpful to me in life. For example, a group here called 80Q bought 15% of my firm last year. We found them on LinkedIn. And so that's pretty incredible. My largest shareholder and one of my largest investors today found on LinkedIn. And by the way, many, many, many of our largest investors we sourced off of LinkedIn. Details matter. And so when you do cold outreaches on LinkedIn, there are ways to have an effective outreach and there are ways to have an ineffective outreach. The do's of cold outreaches: clear subject line, mention a person familiar, always look at like who are the common connections and mention that common connection you have. Be vulnerable, like sharing a weakness or sharing a lack of knowledge is actually a great way to build a network, because ultimately people want to feel like they're smart. They want to share their intelligence with you. And so being vulnerable and saying that you want to learn something from them is really useful. Be ready to compromise. Many people, like if you reach out to me, I'll often say, hey, instead of meeting me, you'll meet my chief of staff. That's a great entryway into my organization. Be ready to compromise. Don't be worried if the person you actually reach out to passes you on to someone else. That is something that is very normal. And then keep the emails or keep the LinkedIns to a reasonable length. There is nothing worse than receiving a 10-paragraph email. It is awful. And so avoid that. And then the don'ts: spelling mistakes, massive pet peeve of mine. Spelling mistakes are terrible. No value proposition, just saying, hey, I want to add you to my network. Terrible idea, because that's just generic. Nobody kind of gets it. And then being aggressive. I've literally had people that I've said, hey, I can't spend time, like start yelling at me in LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, that is not cool. And so the do's and don'ts of cold outreach. But the key here is volume. Get a lot of volume out, because that's how lucky things will happen. How to network: being deliberate and owning your calendar. Too many people only do 1-hour meetings. It is a huge mistake. It is a very bad use of your time to only do 1-hour meetings. You got to break down your day into time increments. In my case, I do 15-minute time increments. And so that means you could have 15-minute meetings, you could have 30-minute meetings, you have 45-minute meetings, you could have 1-hour meetings. And basically organize your day that way. That is really, really, really valuable, because it allows you to fit much more in your day. And then it also allows you to think about, like, what is the optimal setting? What is the optimal tool to build this relationship? Is it going to be a lunch? Is it a dinner? Is it a group lunch? Do you bring the person? I'm Canadian, so do you bring the person to a hockey game? All of these things are tools, and you should really put a list of all the different tools you have, because you'd be surprised at how many tools you have. I've even taken people to church with me. And so there's a lot of different things you could do that will be kind of interesting. Volunteer activity. That's a great one. We go and we make pies. It's really fun and great way to build a deep connection with someone, because ultimately if you take someone out of their comfort zone, they will always be actually quite grateful for you. The other thing is, you'll see in my agenda, I got all these little blue boxes. That's really important. That's really important. And it actually goes to one of the next things, which is being curious and generous. Being curious before you meet someone is really important. All those little blue boxes are preparatory notes for all my meetings. You really got to maximize the time you have with an individual. So try doing as much homework on that person ahead of time. It's really, really, really valuable, because ultimately the person you're meeting with may be way more than who you think they are. Ultimately, if you look at my business card, it only says CEO of Cigar. It doesn't capture the boards I'm on, the charities I'm involved in, the groups and clubs I'm part of. All those things matter. And figuring that out is really important, because ultimately you may think you're meeting a person for something, but realize that that person is actually the key to 3 other objectives that you have because of his other activities. Especially in places like these where a lot of people are on a lot of boards, their business card captures only the tip of the iceberg of who they actually are. So doing your homework is really important. Finally, I'd say one of the most important things to networking is actually generosity. You should think about a network as an energy exchange. You're bringing information, you're bringing connections, you're receiving information and connections. It's really an energy transfer. And ultimately, you want to be with people that are going to be generous. You want to be people that are givers, because there's nothing worse than a negative energy person. And so if you enter every relationship by saying, hey, I've read that you do this. By the way, I think I can improve your life by introducing you to this person or this organization. All of a sudden, your ability to build a meaningful relationship has increased meaningfully. So entering every interaction with generosity is extremely important, and it is one of the things I would tell you the most. When you meet someone new, think about it as an opportunity for an energy exchange. Get ready to get lucky. This is actually probably the thing that has the most important impact in my life, is luck. But luck actually, in my mind, are really 2 things. It's about being prepared for luck and being positioned for luck. You look at this bear, right? He's like well positioned. The fish are literally jumping in his mouth. Coming to events like these, coming to little conferences that are focused on your industry, there are literally things you could do in your life that is like that bear's positioning. Positioning for luck is really important. Preparing for luck is also really important. And preparing for luck is basically everything else I've spoken about today. It's about being deliberate. It's about having done your homework. It's about understanding the full context of an individual or an event. That combination will mean that you will constantly bump into the people you want to meet most. For example, there's one person I've been wanting to meet here for months, and I've been reaching out to tons of people. And last night at the last minute, I said yes to a dinner. But by the way, there's no better way to position yourself for luck than saying yes to as many things as possible. And so I went to a dinner, and by luck, the person I've been chasing for months was sat directly in front of me at dinner. And that happens to me continuously, but it happens to me continuously because I prepare, I'm positioned, and I always say yes. And that is something that's really important. Yes should be the most. So many people say no. If you could say yes, it's going to be way better for your life. And then finally, be grateful and follow up. This was actually my pile of business cards last week that I'd collected over the last few months. And you look at the pile and you're like, God, this is daunting. Like, I can't believe I need to follow up with all these people. But even if you follow up late, it's okay. Like, people are impressed by the fact that you follow up, because so many people don't follow up. So many people you meet with say, hey, I'll introduce you to this person or that person, and they never do it. And so the fact of you following up already differentiates you. It gives you a massive competitive advantage. One of the kind of leaders in the world of private equity once told me, Paul, the way I judge a person's office is by the speed of follow up. And ultimately, his view is that within a week of an important meeting, a handwritten note or some kind of gift is really, really valuable. And so following up is really, really great. There is no limit to how much you can compliment or praise a person in a meeting you've just had. There's no limit. Telling people, hey, this was the most amazing meeting I've had this week, great way to make someone happy. And so there's no limit of being overly thankful. Be thankful, be praiseful. It's incredible. Do lots of favors. One of the most important things is in your life, tons of people ask you, hey, can you introduce me to this person? And the biggest mistake people make is they think of their network as a finite resource. A network is exponential. The more you help build your friends, build their network, the more your network grows. And so being as generous as possible with introductions that take 5 minutes is one of the easiest things you could do. And so do lots of 5-minute favors. Actually, in fact, schedule 5-minute favors in your day. There's another really easy thing to do, which is wish people happy birthday. Facebook and social media channels tell you, happy birthday, like the birthday of all your friends in your network. Use that and send them a little note, because you'll be incredible by the amount of people that then look you up on LinkedIn and say, I've not seen Paul in like 10 years, but he and I are now doing the same thing. Maybe we should connect. So sending people little happy birthdays, sending people gifts. What I do is I send people books. On their birthday, I send them a book of something I've read recently. It really matters. People really appreciate it. And what ends up happening is that they're willing to give back. They're willing to invest time with you. And again, I have always follow up twice because it's that important. You follow up, follow up, follow up. It's one of the things that I really hope that after today, you really take this away. Follow up, make sure that you bring value to the people you know. So that leaves it to our conclusion, which is really 4 things that'll really make you effective at building networks. Firstly, be deliberate, have a plan, hustle. Second, be curious and generous. Networking is an energy transfer. Third, get ready to be lucky. Be prepared and positioned for luck. You'll be amazed at how lucky you get. And finally, be grateful and follow up. I wish you all an amazing conference, and I hope that you all take the chance to go say hello to someone random. Thank you.